I move in here in the summertime. I sit in here and watch TV. My wife, she sits in there.
This is your room, huh?
Yeah, it's summer. That was see my sister up there?
Uh-huh.
She died when she was 26.
Oh.
She just got married.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's sad. Okay, well, it's March 30th, and I'm here talking to Mr. L.P. O'Neill and Avon. Mr. L.P., could you tell me how you got interested in these traditional sailboats?
Just because my father owned them, and I used to sail around in them when I was a boy with him.
Uh-huh. So, what was your father's name?
Lauren Pierce O'Neill Sr.
Okay.
I imagine if there was, they probably heard of him down there. He used to haul down that way, too.
In Marshallburg, probably.
Yeah, he did. Do you have any people down there called the Hodges and Salters down there?
Salters, heck yeah. I don't know any
I'm pretty
Hodges.
sure that boat was bought from the Salters.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't buy it from them, but the man that owned it before my father, I'm pretty sure he bought it from the Salters.
Uh-huh.
That's the one I'm building out there.
Okay, and that is the freight boat.
Freight boat, yeah, freight boat. That's what she was built for.
Okay, and how many feet is that freight boat?
56 feet.
56 feet.
16-foot beam.
Okay.
A 3-foot draft. Flat bottom, see, they don't draw any water at all. That's loaded, 3-foot loaded.
And is that a typical freight boat for that time?
Yes, it was, yeah. For shallow water area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like the bug eye I was telling you about, my father tried her around here, but it was too much because she drawed so much water.
Oh, right.
So,
Is that the bug eye wasn't a flat bottom boat?
No, she was round bottom.
Okay.
The sides come down like this and just curve under.
Is that a Chesapeake boat, the bug eye?
But bug eyes is built all over the country, Maine, but they're well known up in Chesapeake Bay.
Okay.
They're the ones you see up there oystering on the Chesapeake Bay up in Maryland.
Right.
A lot of them is bug eyes and small schooners.
Uh-huh. And skipjacks.
Skipjacks, yeah, everything's up there.
Okay.
So.
Is there a boat that's typical of this area that maybe was invented in this area?
Let me tell you, there's a lot of boats. I was stationed in New Jersey one time, and we had to go up one of these rivers, and the chief said we got to stop and inspect 2 boats, and we stopped and inspected 2 boats, and I looked at the license up on the wall, and both of them were built in Hatteras in the early teens.
Is that
both
right?
of them were built in Hatteras, yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, this boat right here was built right over here on the shore side. Built by Nacy Gray for this mercantile owner. And this Mr. Bradford, John Bradford was a industrialist out of New York.
Right.
He come down here and hunted commercially. He used to ship these geese to New York in barrels. What they do is take their guts out, shove a handful of salt down inside of them,
Really?
and pack them in barrels. Yeah, it was cold, you know.
Oh.
And then they'd ship them to New York.
My gracious.
And he hunted down here. He bought this property down here next to where this boat was built, off of the mercantile owner. I've always believed he set his house, his store on fire. My mother remembers it when she was a kid.
What do you call that boat again?
Sharpie.
The Sharpie. So Nacy Gray built that?
Nacy Gray, yeah.
And that was somebody that lived right here in Avon?
Yeah, right at the end of the other road over there.
Now, was he a boat builder? Or
he was a boat builder and commercial hunter.
And a commercial hunter, okay.
Yeah.
Did you have people that were known as boat builders, or did everybody
Yeah,
just
we had one over here. The last one here was Mr. Willie Austin.
Okay, I've heard of him.
Mr. Willie Austin. He built sailboats and little motor boats and stuff like that. He was good at it. Matter of fact, when I was a kid, when I was 6 years old, he was living in Elizabeth City, and he had a shop up there, a millwork shop.
Right.
And when my father come back from Elizabeth City, my mother, we come down to the shore. We could see off the back porch when the sails was coming, you know. And my mother took me down the land, and I was 6 years old. So that's me up there. I'm 5 up there in that picture.
Oh gosh.
Sitting on the water tank. And my mother and my Willie Austin had built me a sailboat. And about part of the way in, he turned it loose and let it sail in towards the shore. My mother said, I couldn't even hold you. Said you headed right in the sound, you know.
Oh.
Tickled to death with me, you know.
Oh, isn't that nice? Now, what year were you born?
1934.
1934. And so, when you were a boy, people were still using those little sailboats for
Oh, why
transportation?
sure they did. Yeah, there was no power here. There was no anything.
And that would be that little sailboat.
That was it. My father, he fished out of that, set nets out of that boat.
And we call that just a sail skiff?
Sail skiff, that's what it is. Just a
Uh-huh.
sail skiff.
And about how many feet would that be?
That was 17 and a half feet.
Mhm.
It was built by Bill Quiddley in Buxton.
Oh.
Bill Quiddley built it for Vedder Williams, and my father bought it from him after the war, 1946.
Right.
He bought it from him.
Oh.
And, he had it all through my father. He died in 61.
Yeah.
He was standing on the beach fishing. Did you see that picture of there with all them big fish?
Yeah.
Those drums?
Uh-huh. Oh, gosh. That's your father?
Uh-huh. He looks old, don't he?
Uh-huh.
He was only 64 years old when
Oh
he
my
died.
Wow. Those are some big drums,
But
too.
yeah, I'll tell you, that little short guy. My mother was 5'10", and Daddy was 5'5". And she used to take him like that, and kiss him right there. He was bald headed right there. You know,
Right.
he was a nice man. He
Oh.
was a nice man.
And what did he do for a living? Well, was he mainly the freight boat
Yeah,
captain?
he run the freight. Yeah, he
That
run,
was his job.
Let me tell you, he run the freight up until see they called him back during the Second World War.
Wait, what year was he born in? Do you
Who?
remember? Your father.
1897.
1897.
Yeah.
And he was born right here in Avon?
Born right here in Avon.
Because O'Neill's an Ocracoke name, isn't it?
Well, there's O'Neill's down there.
Okay.
I know a lot of them down there. I go down there and see them all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You ever go down there?
Mm-hmm.
You ever go to Pony Island Restaurant?
Yep.
Boys, I love to go down
Good for breakfast.
there. Huh?
Great breakfasts
Oh, yeah.
there.
Good seafood in there,
Oh.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we go down there in the summertime. When the kids come home, we go down to Pony Island. I go visit everybody.
Oh, that's nice. So you
I
probably have some connections with those O'Neills.
I don't know if we do or not. Let me tell you, there was 3 brothers. I know all about our people. My father's people came ashore. You know where Corolla is?
Mm-hmm.
My father came ashore. Not my father. My father's forebears came ashore on a schooner that wrecked off Corolla.
Oh, really?
One brother come down here. The other one, you know where the Currituck Bridge is?
Mm-hmm.
As you go around that long curve. The other one, he moved there. He his people there. And the other one is down in Beaufort.
Ah.
You might have seen it. There's a drugstore down there, O'Neill's drugstore, somewhere in that area.
I don't remember that.
Anyhow, they're part of the one that was down there, which was, see, this used to be Hyde County. This was Hyde County.
Avon?
Yes, sir. Dare County used to be Hyde County.
Really?
Anything, yeah. I've got the documents for about some of my forebears. It's registered in Hyde County, not here.
Right.
So,
Wow. So Dare County used to be Hyde County?
Dare County used to be Hyde County.
It was all Hyde County?
Hyde County. I was starting to say they should have kept it there.
Or Hatteras Island.
Hatteras
used to
Island
be.
was Dare County.
Okay. No, Hatteras Island was Hyde County.
Hyde County then, yeah.
And now it's Dare County. Okay.
Now it's Dare, yeah.
All right.
And,
So your people came ashore at Corolla and then made their way down here?
well, at least one of my grandfathers did.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny about it, they all kept the same names. You know, one guy went there and got married and had kids. He named them after the other brothers.
Aww.
And I lived in New Jersey. There was a family of O'Neills moved in down there, and a kid said they're nice people. Said I'd go down and play with their kids. My kids did.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I got talking to the guy, and guess what?
What?
He is one of the people I told you up in Currituck. He comes from that. His name was Howard O'Neill.
Oh.
My grandfather was George Howard.
How about that?
So, we got to talking and everything, and he
Mhm.
told me about his grandfather lived up there and had all the people,
All right. Let me, hang on 1 second. Okay. We're fine. All right, so could you tell me all about what your daddy used to do? How did he get a job working this freight
Well,
boat?
he, like I told you, him and my mother used to run these, they call them ore barges or whatever. They run ore from either Baltimore or Norfolk
Ore barges?
Yeah, you know, like minerals, you know.
Oh,
Crushed
iron
rock.
ore.
Yeah,
Not
ore.
like they had to use an ore.
No.
Okay.
And they had a tug that towed this barge. It was just like a big house, you know. And my father was captain on it after he got out of the Navy. And well, after he got out of the Navy, he come home and married my mother in 1921, and she went to sea with him. And his father went as a helper too. His name was George Howard, my grandfather.
She went to sea with him?
Yeah.
Isn't that unusual?
No, not in them days.
I thought the women didn't usually go out to sea.
No, my father did, and my uncle, his brother, done the same thing. He carried his wife with him too, and boys.
And how many days at a time would they be out
Well,
there?
whatever it was, how long it took to tow them up there. It took a long time, maybe 6-8 days to go to Bangor, Maine.
Bangor, Maine is where they went.
Yeah.
Now, what was your mother's name?
Ida.
Ida?
Ida Mae O'Neill.
And was she from Avon, too?
Yes, sir. She was born right here at Avon.
So as a young woman, there she is working on this barge with your father.
Yeah. She cooked. They had a crew over there, about 6 or 7, besides my father and his father.
Wow.
And she cooked. She got paid. My grandfather, he got paid. There was nothing right here, and he saved up enough money. And after that, and my mother wanted to move home with Teresa. That's the girl up there.
Was that her? Who was Teresa?
My sister.
Okay. Was that the oldest daughter?
Yeah, she was older. She's 10 years older than me. She was 10 years. She was born in 24, and I was born in 34.
Wow. And so as a baby, she was carried out on this barge?
Yes. My mother come home in December, and she was born in January, and in June she went back. She went to sea when went back to sea.
Wow.
And 3 years later, when it was all over with, my father come down here and he bought the Missouri off this Mr. Charlie Williams, Mr. Charlie Williams was the first legislature from North Carolina from this island.
Really?
He had the post office down here on the shore. It took 5 days to get to Raleigh. In
Really?
them days, yeah, that's what he used to say.
Huh.
He'd have to sail from here to Swan Quarter.
Charlie Williams.
Yeah, he was a legislator.
Is he the one that wrote the Kinniketer? Remember that book?
No, that was his son.
Okay.
That was his son wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a boy here named Charlie. He's the third.
Okay.
Charlie Williams. He used to own that store out on the corner there, which is down at Kinnickee Corner.
Okay. But now, what boat did your father buy from Charlie Williams?
The Missouri.
And what was that? The freight?
That was the freight boat. That's the one I'm building out there
the
now.
Missouri?
Missouri, that was her name.
And that was the one that was built in
Smyrna, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah. 1901.
1901.
Yeah, 56 feet and had a 19-foot beam. And my father ran freight. He had a Coca-Cola franchise. He used to, in other words, he had the only Cokes down here on the island. And
that was probably when Coke first started being put on the market?
Well, they called them dopes back in them days. You know,
They call them what?
Dopes.
Dopes?
Coca-Cola, yeah. You know, Coca-Cola had cocaine in it up until 1937.
Oh my gosh.
You didn't know that,
I did know that.
Did
I
you?
did know that, but I didn't know they called them dopes.
Yeah, well, they called them dopes here, sure. They said
Would you
these
like
old
a
women,
dope?
huh?
Would you like a dope like that?
Yeah, like a dope, yeah. And we used to have a great big garage out there, like a warehouse, and it was always stacked up full of drinks and things like that, you know.
Uh-huh.
And, he'd haul freight, tombstones, lumber, whatever anybody wanted, he'd haul it.
Mm-hmm. And he had would he go regularly?
Once a week.
Once a week.
Well, I'll tell you how much stuff cost. I got a book upstairs. This fella from Frisco, right?
Uh-huh.
He used to have a store named Eddie Williams.
Right.
This is just for instance. And my father bought a case of tomatoes down. It was either 24 or 48. I don't know what it was. Anyhow, the whole case of tomatoes cost $1.33, and he charged 10-cent freight from Elizabeth City and delivered it to Frisco.
You're kidding.
They called it Trent in them days.
Trent, uh-huh.
Trent. And
How did he make any money?
Oh, the most money he ever made was he had government contracts during the Depression, hauling coal to these Coast Guard stations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And,
so what was his actual route from where to where?
well, he'd leave here and go to Elizabeth City to pick up freight.
Okay.
And where he'd go, he'd stop in Rodanthe.
Okay.
He'd go into Rodanthe, he'd drop off stuff. But the stuff that, unless he carried a lot of lumber, he'd go into Buxton or Hatteras,
Right.
Now, he never put engines in that boat until 1939.
Really, it was all sail until
All
then.
sail until 1939.
And then he converted it over, and what
Well,
kind
it didn't look any different, except that living quarters in the stern,
Mhm.
in the back where the little table was.
Right.
That was all out. They put 2 engines down there.
And what kind of engines did they put in there?
2 straight 8 Buicks.
Buicks?
Buick engines, yeah.
You didn't have to crank them, did you?
I don't know if you did or not, tell you the truth, but I remember folks around here used to crank engines with a crank
Right.
with their feet.
With their feet?
Yeah, they turn the key off and turn the engine over and get the crank up. Then they turn the key on and push the crank down.
Oh my gosh.
It was a dangerous thing. My father, he got slammed against the side of the engine cabin many a time.
By what?
The crank,
Oh,
with the engine to kick back in them days.
Oh no.
He had a gouge right through his nose, like that's where this was a different type boat, and threw him against the side, inside the cabin. But they was used to hard work. I'm telling you, that little fella, the only thing that ever I felt bad about, and I think it hurt his feelings. He told me to carry a piece of line up and put it through the block. That was on the Missouri when I was just a little boy, 5 or 6. I should have been, I'd swim all my life, I should have been tough enough. I couldn't get up that mast. He took his shoes off, got barefooted, put the line in his mouth. He went up that mast just like a monkey.
Oh, did he?
Reeved it through the block and come back down.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he was hard all this life,
And how tall was he?
5'5".
Yeah. And
Little
your mother
teeny-
was taller.
He had arms that big around.
Wow.
All
How
that.
about that? And what did people call him?
Lauren.
They call him Lauren.
They call me LP
LP.
for Lauren Pierce.
So they would say, "Here comes Lauren in the freight boat." And where did he keep the boat tied up?
Right
here?
off the shore down
Right
there.
here?
Yeah, right here. Or up to the Mill Creek. You know where the creek is up north of Avon?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, where the restaurants and stuff is?
Right.
Right outside of it is an island out there called Big Island. We used to
Right.
anchor it back there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, and so he would haul anything.
Anything. If you wanted to
Coats?
build a house, he'd go over the Outfall Canal and up Alligator River and all them areas up there and get a little lumber. And
And bring it back here.
yeah,
And would he deliver it as far down as Ocracoke?
I have no idea. I've
Yeah.
never heard him say he ever went to Ocracoke, but more likely he did.
Right.
But see, they had these boats to Hatteras too that run from Hatteras to Swan Quarter.
Oh, that's true, yeah. There were several freight boats, weren't there?
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Did he ever carry people?
Yes, yeah, he did. He always carried people going north and coming back.
Did he charge them?
No,
He didn't?
never charged a nickel. No.
He just let them ride.
Yes, let him ride.
Ah.
Going up, we'd have beef hash and corn fritters going up, and coming back, we'd have the same thing as beef hash. Now this is the watery kind, like with gravy.
Right.
And coming back, they put string beans and corn in it, so it was more like a soup,
Wow.
and still have cornbread.
And would you do that in 2 days or 1 day?
We go up. Here's what they usually did. It took 1 day going up, and then they'd load.
To Elizabeth City.
Load, and they'd tie up in Elizabeth City and load. They'd work it late at night to get her loaded, and then the next morning everything was right. And we had a little donkey, but he had a little donkey boat on there with a little 1-cylinder engine in it.
Right.
That was before the engines were put in. And a lot of times they tow it downriver till we got to the turning buoy outside Elizabeth City, past the Tank River.
Mm-hmm.
Till you got the turning buoy, and then you'd hoist the little boat up on the stern,
Right.
and then you'd set the sails and sail down.
Okay.
My father said he come through. They was coming down through Alligator River one night, or early in the morning. They'd been up there at the Outfall Canal, picked up a load of lumber, and said he heard somebody cussing. They looked, there weren't a guy with him. They had run in a pound net, and the guy was fishing his nets.
Oh, no.
He'd run the freight boat right in the guy's pound out steaks.
Was it at night?
Yeah, early in the morning.
Oh.
Way early. They'd gone to sleep. See, they'd been loading all night, you know.
They fell asleep while they
Fell
were underway?
asleep, yeah.
I bet that fellow was not pleased.
No, it was man, it was, for a kid my age, it was out of this world. You don't know how I dream about them. Every Christmas, my father had another boat. We had a cabin boat that we used to go over to Long Shoal. You know where Long Shoal is? Just after Stumpy Point, right before you get to Englehart.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Long Shoal River.
Right.
And my father used to take me over to hunting every Christmas when I was a boy.
Okay.
We'd anchor back at the island. He'd cook, you know. Oh, God, he could make the best biscuits you ever tasted.
Oh, that's great.
And he'd roast black ducks and stuff in there. We'd have oyster fritters.
Were
And,
you his only son?
yeah, uh-huh.
Oh, just you and then you had your sister.
My sister was just like me. She was raised just like I was.
She would want to go too?
Oh, God, yes. You couldn't keep her out. Couldn't keep her out.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so when he went to Elizabeth City, then he'd come back the next day?
If he could. Most time he did. It's according to, if everything was ready, he'd probably come back the next day. But, you know, sometimes
Did it ever depend on the tides and winds
No,
and stuff?
no, never did. Not with this boat. Not with the Missouri he did. But with the Duncan he did. With the Duncan, when he come down, he'd have to anchor down here by the Cape Channel until the tide got up.
Uh-huh.
And,
What was the Duncan, another freight boat?
she was a bug eye, yeah.
Oh, that was the bug eye.
Yeah, she was a freight boat, yeah.
Okay.
But she drawed a lot of water.
And where did he get the Duncan?
I have no idea. I've asked 40 people. Nobody knows where he got it.
And where are these boats now?
The Duncan is right out here. The Duncan's right off the shore here. The Worms got her.
Mm-hmm.
You know where these boar worms
Right.
that get a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't worth fixing, so they towed her out to the edge of the channel,
Right.
poured gas inside of her, and set her on fire, and she
Oh.
burnt and sunk out there. Now I
Right.
saw it with my fish finder.
Oh, really?
A friend of mine, yeah, we went looking for her. We saw that little rib sticking up out of the sand.
Wow, must be pretty deep where they sunk.
Yeah, it was. It was 9-10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So he had that boat, and we had that one that called the LP Junior.
Oh.
I told you he bought these two. He bought this boat and the LP Junior from Bradford. This commercial hunter. After he died,
Mhm.
my father, he was offered to buy the house, land, and the two boats for $1,200. He only had $400, so he bought the boats.
Oh, okay.
So one was the boat that they used to live on. They go out to carry hunters out in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
was called the Brant.
Grant.
She was 30 feet long.
And that was another sailboat?
No, she was a
Oh.
motorboat. Had
Okay.
a 3-cylinder Lathrop in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that throwed my father against the side of the cabin.
Oh.
And they used to go out and hunt. They had a stove in there,
Uh-huh.
had a wood stove, you know.
Did your father take them hunting too?
Yeah, he did. That's what he did. He worked for Bradford. He used to take people out, yeah.
And who is Bradford?
He was a New York industrialist. They still got him up there. They're very, very rich people.
And he had a place down here?
Yeah, he got a club down here. Built a nice club here, yeah.
Oh, I heard about that. It was to the north here?
Right up to the north down that road. It's called, what's the name of that road? McMullen Road.
Mm-hmm.
McMullen was a district attorney for the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
He bought this property off of Bradford.
And Bradford was the last name, Mr. Bradford?
John Bradford was his
Okay.
name, yeah. He's the one that owned all this stuff.
And did your father do that while he was doing the freight boat or
No,
afterwards?
no, he did that before until he got in the freight boat.
Oh, before.
But-
Okay.
Yeah, that was when he first come home.
So you must have grown up really knowing how to handle boats.
I did all my life. All my life I've been in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And you can sail.
yeah, well, I can sail. Yeah, I've sailed. Man, that little boat up there, I loved it to death.
Uh-huh. And did people, how'd they take care of those boats? How'd they keep them from, did they paint them regularly? They
used
haul them out?
copper paint, haul them out, put copper paint on them, you know.
Uh-huh.
My father, that was just like a toy.
Really?
I'm telling you, he loved that boat.
And how often would he haul that boat out?
All the time, about once a month, he'd haul it out and scrub the bottom
And what would
Dry.
he scrub it with?
with sand on a rag.
Oh. And that would get all the algae off?
Yeah, sure, get it off, let it dry, you know. One little nick in it, and he'd have to paint it. All the time.
That's sweet.
My mother sat there. My mother was a very patient lady,
Uh-huh.
you know. In them days, I've heard that heard certain people say that women were second-class citizens back in them days. No, they weren't second-class citizens. They was because they loved their family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went to church one time, and I heard this woman say that in Sunday school class. I got up and left.
Oh.
All I could see was my mother's red hands where she was washing me and my sister's clothes out there by hand on a washboard.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
She must have been some hard-working woman
Oh,
to do
yeah.
all that and go out on these boats and stuff.
Yeah, she loved it. My father used to send her to collect.
Collect the money?
Yes, sir.
How did she do that?
She didn't take no bull off of anybody. I'm telling you. He'd send her to collect the money from these stores up down the islands, you know.
And how would she get around?
One of his workers would carry her in a truck. My father had 2 4-ton Chevrolets.
Oh, okay.
These only had single wheels. Didn't have double wheels because they won't pull in sand. They let the air way out of the tires, you know, so they flatten out like that. And he'd carry her around.
And so she would go all the way from Rodanthe on down, all the stores
Most
that
of the
would buy
time,
Coca-Colas.
you know, believe it or not, they didn't have no trouble with people rode out here. People from Buxton
Oh,
and
Buxton.
Frisco. Huh?
The Buxton and Frisco people.
Yeah. One time I went with my mother and all to go down to collect, and this guy run out the back door of the store. My mother saw him, and she went back there and hollered, "Come on." I remember that just as good. I was a little kid.
Oh my gosh. Well, you must have known everybody on this island. If you were all involved in delivering things and going with your mother to collect the money, and you must have known everybody.
I did. That's why they had the CC camps down there too in them days.
Okay.
It was fun. You know, for a kid, stuff like that, anyway, especially on them boats. I couldn't wait to get on that boat.
And you got to sleep on it in a little bunk?
Yeah, I had a bunk. Yeah, I'd sleep on the bunk, like little table bunk.
Uh-huh.
And my father and the other guy, they'd sleep in the regular bunks, the one you lowered down. They had the canvas bottoms, you know.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, as you get old, you go. Now I can remember things right now. The details on these boats.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I remembered when I was a kid. But if you'd asked me that 35 years ago, I wouldn't have known it.
Oh, right.
I wouldn't have known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you remember when the people started switching over to motors on their boat?
Yeah, sure. Like my father, he switched in 1939.
Mm-hmm.
He switched in 1939.
And what did people think of that?
Well, it was a lot easier for him. Gas was only like 10, 12 cents a gallon then.
Somebody said they used to call them gas boats.
Yeah, that's what they call them, gas boats.
Sailboats or gas boats?
Yeah, there was a lot of them. Man, I'm telling you, there was a lot of gas boats around here. They had what they call I'm trying to think of the name of that gas boat they used to run, shad boats.
Oh.
You've heard of them, haven't you?
I sure have.
I'm going to build one of them one day.
Mm-hmm.
But I got 2 more boats to build. I got to build that bug guy and the LP Junior.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have quite a collection by the time you're done.
Yeah, I'm going to keep on.
The LP?
I'm going to put the Missouri's going to be right here.
Uh-huh.
I told my son, your rug from Lebanon is going to be hung somewhere else. He sent me that from Lebanon when he was, I don't really remember.
Stationed over there?
No, he was on a ship over there.
Oh, what kind of ship? Merchant Marine?
No, he was in the Navy.
Oh, I gotcha. Right.
He was a fire control technician. They're the ones that point the missiles and stuff.
Oh, right.
And he's got his own office out here now. He sells corporate software.
Uh-huh.
I just carried him. You know what fish roe is, don't you?
Yes, I do.
I just carried him a whole thing full. He brought me some this morning. I fried it to him, carried it out to his office for his breakfast.
What kind of fish did that come
Jacks.
from? Really? I've never heard of
Jack roe.
roe. I've had shad roe. What course
Herring roe.
Of course, they call them Menhaden shad.
Menhaden roe is good. They look like a little peach slice.
Right, but they call it shad roe down there.
Well, they have shad. You know, a shad is actually in the family of a menhaden.
Mm-hmm.
They call them bunker, menhaden, fatback,
yeah.
alewife.
And I've had mullet. I think I've had mullet roe.
Mullet is too fine.
Yeah.
I never liked it. It was too fine. Now,
right.
down at Ocracoke, this guy give me some. They take and put some in a jar. They put a teaspoon of salt and about a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Put that in there. They put a lid on and they put it in a hot water bath and cook it for about 3 hours.
In the jar?
Yeah, cook it in, well, just like you'd can fish. That's the way my mother used to can fish.
Oh.
And I carried a jar fishing with me one night up to Gold Shoal. And I carried 6 new grapes with me. I remember it just like this guy with me never forgets it. I ate that the whole jar of roe. Man, I was about to burn up. I drunk all 6
hot.
of them new grapes. Yeah, it had half a teaspoon of
new
cayenne.
grape soda pop.
Yeah, soda pop. They call them new grapes. But you've seen those sodas, haven't you?
I
New
have.
grapes.
I have. Did you grow up drinking a lot of Coca-Cola since your father had the
Oh,
pension?
God, yes. Man, I had little girls out there all the time, right? So, I had the drinks. Man, he had every kind. You know, they was good drinks back in them days. Double colas, RC colas,
Double colas?
knee-highs. Yeah, it had
What
a
was
double.
that?
Double cola was something like I'm trying to think what the name of it is. RC, something like an RC.
Okay.
Something like an RC.
Yeah.
And then they had all the knee-highs, Robinson sodas. God, all that was made right there in Elizabeth City.
Wow.
They had a Pepsi Cola and a Coca-Cola bottling plant in Elizabeth City.
Right.
And
Now, did he ever carry the mail?
no,
That
no.
was a whole different
The whole
official thing,
mailboat
right?
was different. They used to anchor down here, right off the shore. Everybody, women, men, and everything could go down and wait for the mailboat.
And that was an everyday delivery?
Every day or every other day, whichever, you know.
And that was right out here, too?
Yeah, right here on the shore side, yeah.
Mhm.
That's where the post office was, right down the end of this road you come
It
in.
was?
Yeah.
Because this seems like it's a little outside of Avon. It's a little
The
side.
post office, you'd walk in and you'd have to turn sideways to get out. There was just room for him to stand back at this little place here with a window, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd go in and get your mail, and they didn't have any boxes,
Right.
you know, and you'd go in and get your mail and just back out.
Now, so if people ordered mail order dresses or something,
That's what they did, yeah. They'd bring
would
them,
it
yeah.
come on the freight boat or the mailboat?
No,
Came
they
on
come
the
on. If you ordered something from Sears Roebuck, that's where they used to order everything from.
From the mailboat. It would come on the mailboat.
Come on the mailboat, yeah.
Okay.
And
Well, that must have been so exciting when the mailboat showed up.
oh, it was. Everybody, all the men and women and kids, man, they were jumping up and down there, you know. And
And did they ever transport people on the mailboat too?
tell you the truth, I don't know. They probably did, but I don't know that. This guy next door over
Uh-huh.
here, his wife, that was his wife's father that used to run the mail for
And
Matt
who is the fella next door?
Belton Gray.
Oh, Belton Gray. Okay. And his wife's father ran the mailboat?
Yeah, he was one on the mailboat, yeah.
And he lives right next door
Uh-huh.
to you.
And
His father ran the freight boat.
Yeah. And but no, he didn't live here. He lived up in Matteo.
Oh, but now he lives here.
His daughter's here. His
Okay.
daughter. He married this girl from Matteo,
Uh-huh.
and that was her father.
Okay.
And
How about that?
it was very interesting. And what I like about it was how people treated people. You know, everybody. I mean, everybody was in the same boat. There was no rich people, or I mean, if they did, you didn't. There was no show in it. You know.
Right.
And, just to be around these people and talk to them. Now, I've always been one, just like my father. My father always told me, he said, you want to ask questions of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was telling you about that clock I took apart to get the gears out of. When I was a little kid, my father gave me 2 clocks and told me to take them apart, all the little gears and stuff in them. And I played with. There was no toys.
Right.
There was no toys in them days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you got a present at Christmas, you got it at church. At home, you got like a little piece of candy, and an orange, and an apple.
Right, right. What church did you grow up?
Methodist church.
The Methodist Church.
That's where we got they put a tree up out there, and they buy a little gift for a boy, a little girl for girls, you know, a little doll or something.
And was
like
it only the Methodist Church, or there's also an Assembly of God?
that. Yeah,
in
that
Avon?
was all. Yeah, that was one. Yeah.
So those are the 2 churches?
Yeah, there was another one here called the Northern Church, but I don't remember any. That was before my time.
Northern Methodist Church.
Yeah, that was a Northern Church. Anyhow, it was on the road going up towards the North End Road,
Right.
and
Now, did the Assembly of God congregation do things with the Methodist congregation? Did y'all get
No.
together?
no, they didn't like each other. They said one time, the Assembly of God was singing, "Will there be any stars in my crown?" And this was on Sunday morning,
Uh-huh.
and the Methodist Church was singing, "No, not one." You know, they always told that stuff. You know.
How funny. And when you were growing up, did you visit the other? Well, you did because of your daddy's business. But was there much visiting between
Oh
communities?
God, yes, yeah. I mean, my mother's grandfather was married 5 times. I used to have a list of the kids that he had. A list
What
of
happened
them.
to all his other wives?
They probably died.
Yeah.
They probably died.
Mhm.
And the last time he married, he was 65. He married a 16-year-old girl in Mans Harbor
No.
and fathered 2 boys.
God.
Fathered 2 boys.
What was his name?
His name was Charlie Scarborough.
Wow. Well, he had a lot of
Charlie
energy.
S. Scarborough, yeah. Hey, oh God, you wouldn't believe the kids he had. That was my mother's grandfather. My mother never knew who her my mother. I used to ask my mother. I said, "Who was your grandmother?" She says, "I don't know which one of the children was my grandmother." I'm telling you, she didn't know. He'd been married so many times. Anyway.
How about that? Well, those are interesting days, huh?
Yeah, it was. Well, people had big families, you know, but they seemed like they was happy, though. People seemed like they was very happy.
What kind of businesses used to be here that aren't here anymore?
Just the mercantiles, and I don't remember it, but there used to be windmills on the shore here. There was about 3 or 4 windmills that ground flat a mill
Mm-hmm.
back in them days.
Right.
What they do is these boats, like that one, they go across the sound and they carry salt spots, salt mullets, oysters, and stuff like that, and they go over and trade it for molasses. They made a lot of molasses over there, sorghum molasses.
Right.
They bring back sorghum molasses, salt pork, and cornmeal.
Right. And that's the Sharpie.
That's the Sharpie. Yeah, he used her as a freight boat going across the sound to haul this stuff back.
Because it was a little bit smaller and
Yeah, shallow draft.
than
Shallow
that
draft.
other boat.
Yeah, well, you figure them boats is long and narrow. It's
Mhm.
28 foot. That's a long boat for a
Yeah,
boat like
so
that.
he'd go cruising over all those shoals.
Yep.
And when he did that trade, would he still go to Elizabeth City or would he go up to New Bern?
I don't
or-
know. I don't know if he went to Elizabeth City or not. I don't know
Yeah.
that, but I do know that. I was telling you about this guy that owned this boat. That Bradford bought his business.
Uh-huh.
Right before Bradford bought his land to build that house on, his store burnt down. The man's store,
Uh-huh.
and right after that, Bradford moved the man and his whole family to New York and opened them a store in New York City.
Oh.
So I think there was something going on there about that store. That's what all the old folks always said. They burnt that store down. You know.
And what year did that burn?
I have no idea.
Did they have
My
a
mother was a little girl when it burnt down.
Oh. Did they have a fire department?
No, didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
Probably poured sound water on it. It was right next to the shore over there.
Oh my gosh. Huh.
But I don't remember. I probably saw Bradford, but I don't remember it.
Right.
I don't remember Bradford.
Now, so you growing up, you decided to become a commercial fisherman?
No, I went in. I left home when I was almost 16. I was 15. I left home in June
Mm-hmm.
when I was 15. I went to Norfolk, worked in Swift Storage Plant until I
Ah.
turned 16. Then I got my merchant marine license.
You did?
Yeah, and the first year I was up there, I didn't work on anything. I wanted to go on them tugs out of Norfolk,
Right.
so all I got was my license, and I worked in up in the wirehouse where the tugs dock with this old man making fenders. You know, these big rope fenders that hangs off the side of the tug.
Right.
And at the end of August, I come back home, went to school again. And the next year, I left. I got a job on the ferries going from Little Creek, Virginia, to Kiptopeke. That's across where the Delaware Bay Bridge is.
Mhm.
Have you been across there?
I've
Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
been
the
across
one-
that bridge.
Yeah, okay. There used to be a ferry that went across there.
Wow.
From there to Kiptopeke, little town called Kiptopeke.
Yeah, I've never heard of Kiptopeke.
Have you?
No, never have.
No, anyhow, that went from Little Creek to Kiptopeke.
Uh-huh.
And I sailed on that all year. That was pretty good. 4 days on, 4 off, I made $84. That was good money for a kid.
Right.
And they didn't hardly take anything out in them days.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd take me, I'd catch a bus to Elizabeth City the first day. The second day, I'd come home. The second day, I'd spend the night. The third day, I'd catch a bus back to Elizabeth City, and then go to Norfolk and be up there in time to go back to work.
Oh my
Four-
gosh. Wow. how long did you work there?
I worked there until, I worked there two seasons.
Uh-huh.
Until the season I graduated from high school, I went to work there. And after, in the fall of the year, he got my friends was all in the Coast Guard. And they wanted me to join the Coast Guard, so I went in the Coast Guard.
A lot of people did around here,
Yeah,
didn't they?
I'm glad I did, too.
And was that your whole life's work mainly, was working in the Coast Guard until you retired?
21 years.
And where were you stationed?
You name it. Mostly on ships. I had 13 years and 6 months sea duty on ships.
Now, were you married at the time?
Yeah, I was married. I've been through, this is my third wife.
Ah! And so...
It's hard on a woman. It really is. It's hard
Yeah.
on a woman.
Yeah,
My second wife and I, we had 5 kids.
Wow.
6 years and 11 months.
Really?
5 kids.
Wow.
And that's one of my boys that's here.
Mm-hmm.
And my other daughter, my last wife, my third wife, she's the one that's in Iraq.
Okay.
So,
Wow, so you had a lot of kids.
yeah, I did.
And then you retired and came back here and started commercial fishing?
Yeah, and I remarried and I was divorced in early 70s. I remarried in 77.
Mm-hmm.
And Elizabeth was born in 78.
Oh.
So that was the first hand-raised kid. I always called her my hand-raised. I swear, she's got my temperament. She acts just like me.
Yeah,
You know?
nice.
And I wanted her to call me Pappy when I was young because my father called his father Pappy.
Uh-huh.
I always said, I'm your Pappy, stuff like that. And she never would say Pappy. She finally called me Poppy.
Uh-huh.
Poppy. And then after that, she said, that sounds too old. So she started calling me Dad. It actually hurt my feelings, I wanted her to call me Poppy.
Right. Yeah, it's the funny thing about kids, they have minds of their own, don't they?
Yeah.
And so what kind of fishing did you get into once you retired?
You ever heard of long netting?
Long netting?
Uh-huh.
Like long hauling?
Long haul, yeah,
Yep.
long net. Okay, yeah, I
I know
did
at
that.
Core Sound they long haul.
Yeah.
And that's when they get out of the boat and they step on the bottom of the net. and
No,
they
they call that swiping.
Oh, okay.
We call that swiping when you
Swiping.
get out of the boat. Long hauling is when you stay in the boat and pull the nets with your boat,
Okay.
and you bunt it, come to the bunt, and then you pull the bunt on until you come to the bag,
Right.
Then you bail the fish out. I did that for 3 years. I got tired of doing that. Then I went and started commercial fishing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I think I made a little bit more money.
And what kind of fish did you go for then?
Anything I could catch, mostly flounder because you got more money for them.
Did you have a pound net?
No, never did have a pound net.
So you would catch those flounders
In the gill net,
in the gill net?
6-inch gill net.
In the sound side then?
Yeah, sound side out on the reef and
Mhm.
around. Yeah, it was real nice.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I'll
And-
tell you, you want to know something? I miss it some kind of bad.
Yeah. And so you kept on until you got this vertigo?
Well, let me tell you what happened. I went down and checked my boat one day. It was we had this hard wind, the tide come up, and I went down had my boots on, and I walked down the dock. I didn't know it,
Uh-huh.
but one of the planks had broke loose on the dock, and I stepped through it, and I went clear down to here with my leg, and I caught myself with this arm. And when I caught myself, I felt a real hurt up here. I said, well, it'll go over like a sprain.
Mm-hmm.
But after a couple of days, it didn't go away, and I couldn't raise my arm. I couldn't raise my arm at all like this. In other words, I'd have to, when I went to bed, if I wanted to do like this, I'd take this hand and do this.
Oh my gosh.
So come find out, I busted the muscle off this arm,
Mm-hmm.
and it had bunched up like a rubber band around my up there around the back of my neck. So I went in the hospital. They put 4 pins in my arm,
Mm-hmm.
stretched the muscle down and tied it over them pins.
I never heard of that
This arm's better. Look, this arm's better than this one now. This one's better than this one is now.
But that put a crimp in your fishing for a while?
Yeah, I had to quit fishing because I had, for 6 weeks, they had a steel brace, weighed 36 pounds strapped around me. And I walked around and slept like this for 6 weeks. I had to sleep like this on the bed. My wife, she moved in our daughter's room because they weren't enough. I slept like that, so the arm was laid out.
Uh-huh.
And, but after that, right after that, I went into vertigo. Well, I didn't know what it was.
Right.
I didn't know what you called it. I was walking to the bathroom one night, and when I come out of the bathroom and started back to the bed, it hit me all of a sudden. I went down in the floor, and you lose it right now. If you lose one of them things over here, you're down.
And it's your eardrum fluid and all
fluid
that?
build up in your eardrum, pressing on the nerve. And I take a fluid pill every day now. One
Right.
fluid pill, and I keep cotton in my ears on these windy, cool days.
But they told you not to get back out on a
Oh,
boat.
but yeah, they said. Well, I thought to myself, I set a few crab pots right along the shore. I was walking to the bathroom one night, and when I come out of the bathroom and started back to the bed, it hit me all of a sudden. I went down in the floor, and you lose it right now. If you lose one of them things over here, you're down.
And it's your eardrum fluid and all
fluid
that?
build up in your eardrum, pressing on the nerve. And I take a fluid pill every day now. One
Right.
fluid pill, and I keep cotton in my ears on these windy, cool days.
But they told you not to get back out on a
Oh,
boat.
but yeah, they said. Well, I thought to myself, I set a few crab pots right along the shore, and I did it. And I thought, well, maybe I could throw the anchor if it happened. So one evening, my son and I said, come on, let's go down and fish a crab pot. So we went down, and I got one of them spells, and here he is. He's smaller than me, and he had to drag me out of the boat. He took his pickup truck over there, and we got me laid down in the back. He dragged me up these steps and put me to bed.
Oh my gosh.
So I said, that was
Yeah.
before, see, before I had the fluid pill,
Right.
before the fluid
And
pill.
now you're thinking maybe you'll try again?
Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to set some crab pots, yeah. I'm going to set some pots.
Can
I
you
guess.
tell me how fishing has changed over the years?
Well, back in them days, there's many regulations,
Right.
These people that with the regulations want to say that we kill a lot of fish, gill netters. They blame everything on gill netters. But the biggest killer is long haulers and pound netters. They kill more fish. They take out the little fish. They take them out of the water. They die, and they scrape them overboard or sell them for crab bait.
Right.
A gill net, them people kill more fish in one day than one gill netter kills his whole life. But it's just an excuse.
Right.
The federal government right now, they want to shut down commercial fishing some kind of bad. They want you to just stop it.
Right.
Because there's so much pressure from these tourist groups and sportsmen and stuff like
Right.
that.
And how about the markets? Have they changed over the years?
Well, some of the prices stay the same. Actually, I got the higher prices my son does for flounders 6-8 years ago than what they're getting now.
Really?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Does your son fish today?
Yeah, he went out this morning.
Is he a fisherman?
No, he sells corporate software.
But he
He
fishes
does that
on
to
the
keep
side.
from going nuts. Can you imagine sitting in front of that screen? Sometimes he sits 16 hours in front of that thing.
Who does everybody sell to? Tillman?
Tillman, yeah.
Is there anybody else in Avon, or is Tillman the only?
Yeah, Tillman. Well, there are very few here anymore that even sell to anybody.
And who was the dealer before Tillman? His father?
No. We had one called Kitty Keat Seafood. That was that red building next to the Tillman's. You know where Tillman's is. That red building's falling down.
Uh-huh.
And then before that was George Gray. That was the north building.
Okay.
He bought fish when I long hauled. We sold fish to George.
Oh.
Then later on we sold to Sumner. He had the middle place, the red fish house.
At the same time, there were two or three fish houses at the same time.
We had two.
Two at the same
Yeah,
time.
and then through that whole time, George he bought just crabs. He
Oh,
was a crab dealer.
So he wasn't really competing with the other fella because he did a little bit different.
No. What them days, they had 6 or 8 long haulers, but 3 out of here, and the other ones would come down from Collington and Kitty Hawk,
Right.
and they'd stay down here, in their boats during the week, and then they'd tie their boats up and go home in a car on weekends.
The fishermen would stay down here?
Yes, they'd stay on their boats. Yeah.
Okay.
Stay on their boats. Yeah.
And what decade was that when they used to do that?
Well, they did it from the time I left home. I left home in 1953. That was the year I left for good. I left at 53. They was doing it then. And when I retired, they're still doing it.
Oh, okay. But they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, there's one long hauler out of here. One.
But do they come from out of town?
No, they're here, from here.
Right.
Kendall Gray. He's got
One long hauler left?
That's all they are.
Does he have a crew?
Well, them days, what they do is ask somebody, you want to go fishing tomorrow? Yeah. And if they had a regular crew, they did.
Okay.
But normally, the way it is, people, different jobs, you know, they say, yeah, I'll go with you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll go three-handed, you know.
Right.
Usually 4 people, but they usually they'll go three-handed.
Yeah. And do you remember when they used to have, are you too young, when they used to have those, what were they called, buy boats? Where they would buy the fish off the fishermen and haul them away?
Well, we used to have a fish house. When I was a kid, those fish house was out here in the Sound.
Oh,
Almost,
tell me about that, because I remember hearing something about that.
where the right close to where Daddy sunk the bug eye. It was right across the channel.
The fish house was out on stilts?
Yeah, it built. Yeah, it had a big hole in the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and the little boat would go under the fish house, and they drop a basket down. They put the fish in it, and they pull it up.
Really?
Yeah.
And that was because it was a little bit deeper out there?
It was deep. Well, and another reason was there was the fuel barge used to come down here, tie up out there, and they pumped gas and kerosene, which they had tanks on the shore side,
Mm-hmm.
and there was iron pipes laid under the water.
Oh.
And the fish house out there, they tie up to get, and the oil boat would pump the oil through the tanks on the shore.
And then what would they use it for on shore? People's houses?
You know, gas boats, cars, and kerosene, and people burnt cars.
Oh.
We had my kitchen is just real small,
Mm-hmm.
and of course we got a dining area we eat in.
Mm-hmm.
And the first year that they moved in this house was July in 1930.
In this very house?
Yeah, this house. It's all changed. I did all this work
Uh-huh.
except for overhead. I hired somebody to look at the job.
Oh, yeah.
Now I done the bedrooms that didn't crack.
Hmm.
This is commercial people, drunks. Anyhow, my mother told my father they had a wood stove. One of them great big old ranges like they used to use them days.
Mm-hmm.
My mother told Daddy, said, if you want me to cook again next year, you better buy me an oil stove because I'm not going to have this wood stove in it. Can you imagine?
A
That
wood
little kitchen's
stove.
half of this size here, and they had that wood stove in there. Can you imagine in July
No.
cooking fried spots out there in that little kitchen? So he bought her an Aladdin oil stove. It was beautiful. I remember the color. It was off-white and green.
Oh,
It was
that-
beautiful.
Don't you wish you had that now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. It was beautiful.
Huh.
But those wood stoves made better biscuits.
Did it?
Oh, yeah.
Did they taste better? They had that wood
Yeah,
smell?
they did. Oh,
Wood
God, they had that
taste?
smoky. Oh,
Oh,
God,
my
you talk
gosh.
about good. Wow.
Is that how they cooked on the boat, too? With
Yeah, my
with
father,
wood?
yeah, I still got the pan he cooked biscuits in on
And
the
he
boat.
put wood in the boat and lit it on
Yeah,
fire.
we carried wood, yeah, that's
Hmm.
right. And the water, we had a barrel up there on the Missouri, right as you come out that little hatch up forward where the stove is.
Mm-hmm.
They had a water barrel there. And the water in that barrel always tasted sweet. When you come out of Elizabeth City around the buoy to head south, that's where they always drop the bucket overboard to get clean water. They wouldn't get it out of the river.
Uh-huh.
On the way down, see, it was fresh water coming out of the rivers,
Oh.
and it was brown.
Oh, and you would drink that?
Oh, it was settled. It was delicious water.
Really?
Cook with it, yeah.
Huh. You wouldn't want to do that today, though, would you?
I'd try it. I told you when you get my age, you want to do everything. That's
Mm-hmm. Now, it sounds like you had a great childhood growing
I
up
did.
here.
God, you couldn't. Oh, God, man.
What's it like for kids today growing up in Avon?
It's a rat race.
Is it?
It is a rat race. The drugs, God, we've had 4 or 5 people died in the last 3 or 4 years,
I heard about the boy about a month ago. It was,
and they don't do anything to these people that cause it. They don't do it. They're still selling.
yeah. Why do you think it's become a problem? Why do you think these kids are turning to that?
I tell you, I believe it's because they don't have any hope, or I don't believe they have any hope, and they're raised where the kid actually run the family. They, I want this and I want that, and they get it.
Right.
There was no such thing
Mhm.
in this family.
Are the churches getting involved, trying to get involved and doing something?
Yeah,
about
they
it?
are. Yeah, sure
Yeah.
they are. Yeah, they're trying to, but it's some kind of awful. Just this little boy over here, he got killed in. This was a car accident though. But they'd had trouble a long time with him when he was 15.
Yeah.
This other boy here, he was 18 years old or 19. He OD'd.
And
They
lived
had
right
one
on
down
this
to
road?
Buxton here, a man 40 years old. He did. My daughter used to hang around with him when they went to school together. This boy here to Buxton, he's dead. That was just 3 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
And it don't have anything to do with age. I know people here. I know one man. He's older than I am. He's in his 70s already, and he's popping pills.
Oh, yeah, that prescription.
You know
stuff's
why they
getting
pop
bad.
pills? You know why they do? These people don't have anything to do.
Right.
They don't have anything to do. They don't wake up like I do. When I wake up in the morning, and I go out in there. You see my stove I got out there? I'll go out in the garage and cook my breakfast. I'll have bacon and eggs and sausage and make biscuits. I got a little oven there I make biscuits in. And sit out there and I think what I'm going to do that day.
I should have come over and had breakfast with you this
Oh,
morning.
we had fried roe this morning.
Did you?
My son, he's killing me. He says, "Do you want me to bring some more roe tomorrow?" I said, "No, buddy, no, no more tomorrow."
Does your wife work?
She's working right now.
Where does she work?
She works for Outer Beaches Realty.
Mm-hmm. Real estate's a big business around here.
Well, she cleans cottages.
Ah, okay.
That's good money. God
Yeah.
almighty, good money.
Well, I guess, there's a lot of economic opportunity here.
Well,
these
she used to
days.
work out at the shopping center out there.
Uh-huh.
She stood on her feet 6 days a week and bring home 200 and some bucks. Now she works cleaning cottages. Last week she made 470 some.
Wow,
So
that's great.
I'm retired on the military. I get a pension from the military and on Social Security. So
Yeah. Well, what do you think Avon will look like 10 years from now or 20 years from
I'd
now?
hate to look at it.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody a few days ago, we were down at Food Line, this old man. I said, "What do you think these old people do, walk in Food Line and see all this food?" My God, they couldn't believe it, They
The
couldn't
old
believe it.
timers that used to just.
I'll tell you, this was, people were poor. Let me tell you what my grandfather said. Daddy carried his father off when they went to sea. He went with him. He helped my mother in the kitchen. And the second spring, he'd been sailing 2 years. Of course, they come home every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But the second spring, he told Daddy, he said, "Laura," he says, I want to go home." He said, I'm tired. I just want to go home and walk around. So that was in 1926. And Daddy said, "All right, Dad, all right, Pappy," he called him Pappy. Anyhow, Daddy said he took him uptown Norfolk and bought him a brand new suit. My grandfather, he thought he was a lover, yeah. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. Anyhow, it's real funny. Anyhow, my grandmother had already died. And Daddy said, "All right." So he took him uptown, bought him a new suit, shoes, top hat, tie, and white shirt and stuff. Because he was always very neat, my father said. And after he bought all that stuff, he laid it out. He gave him $340 in cash. And he said, he broke down crying. He says, "I wish your mother Mary was here to see this." That money. They never had that much money. He never saw that much money in their whole life, $340.
And that's something.
And, when he come home, he took a lot of that money and bought little gifts for all these pretty girls and stuff,
Oh, yeah. So he was quite the
Yeah,
man about town.
He
with women.
died in 1926, 1927. My father had he'd been bedridden for 3 months. He lived in the upstairs. They used to live in my mother's father, my grandfather's on my mother's side. They used to live in that house right after when they moved home.
Uh-huh.
And the upstairs window pointed out to where you could look out in the sound. And my grandfather hollered to my mother and says, "Here comes Laura," and said, "There's his sail." Now, he hadn't been out of bed in 3 months. He hadn't left upstairs in 3 months.
Right.
He had to carry his food and everything. My mother said she looked, and here he come downstairs. He had put on clean clothes and come down. They went down to meet my father. Next morning, he was dead in his bed.
Oh.
What it was adrenaline, I guess,
Right.
He was laid dead in his bed. That was next morning.
And that's how old was he?
I believe he was in his 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw him. I never saw any of my grandparents. Not one.
When she said, "Here comes Lauren, I see a sail," could you recognize people by their sails?
Yeah, that was 1927. They're still under sail.
Mm-hmm. But she could tell it was him and not somebody else?
Oh yeah, he could tell. When my father bought the boat, she was white. When he turned into a freight boat, she was painted green. When my father first got it, it was white.
Okay.
All the boats were white.
Right.
It had copper paint, on the bottom like that.
Yeah.
But my sister, that's why they left up there, because my mother wanted to come home with my sister, because it was no life up there.
Yeah.
It was I'll tell you, it was like my uncle, he was shot 3 or 4 times up there on the waterfront. It was a tough situation.
Where was this?
Norfolk.
Norfolk.
Yeah.
Huh.
On the waterfront. Yeah.
Right.
So they moved home. Daddy went to working for Bradford on hunting.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the last time he made a freight run? About what year did he stop?
The last time that I went it was either late in the 40s or early 41, because they called my father back in the Navy right after the war broke out.
Oh, right.
He was in the Navy. He was in during the First World War.
Mm-hmm. And so then after World War II, he never picked it back up?
No, I'm going to tell you about the Missouri.
Okay.
Have you heard of, that up there where I was telling you those restaurants north of Avon, on that river right there? Right outside there's an island. When the 44 storm come, the Missouri was anchored back at that island.
And what was the island called?
Big Island.
Mm-hmm.
And when that storm hit, she broke the anchor chain. She went out the Mill Creek, went across the land, and the mast took the telegraph lines down, and she went to sea and broke in half. The bow was up around Little Kitty Key Coast Guard Station on the beach, and the stern went down to Creeks Hill, just north of Hatteras.
Oh my gosh, are they still there? Can you still see the remnants?
No, you can't see it. This one uncovers every once in a while. The bow does, but Amanda Hatteras asked my father, could he have the engines and shafts, and Daddy give it to her.
Oh, did she float right across the island on the
went
high
right
tide?
across. There was no dunes in them days.
How about that?
We used to stand on the front porch. You could watch the breakers roll up on the beach.
Really?
There's a lot more vegetation now than there was then.
Right.
Because people burned everything back in them days in their stoves and stuff.
Oh, yeah. And when the people that were building boats, where did they get their lumber? Did they come from out?
No, like I told you, they go out to all these different places across the sound. These Outfall Canal and
like Columbia, North Carolina
Columbia,
area?
sure. They go up there. Yeah, my father would go in there and get whole boatloads of stuff and bring it down here
for the boat builders and the house builders.
House builders, yeah. Yep.
So they wouldn't use the
This
trees
whole house
here.
cost $1,900.
My gosh, isn't that something?
$1,900. This whole
Were
house
you born
got
in this-
redwood doors.
You weren't born in this house, were you?
Yeah, I was born here in 1934 in the same room I sleep in now.
You were?
I was born in this house right here.
With a midwife?
Yeah, my mother's brother's wife. She was a midwife.
What was her name?
She delivered Aunt Oma. She delivered 90-some children.
O-L-M-A?
O-A-M-A. O-A-M-A. Aunt Oma.
O-A-M-A.
She was from Hatteras. She was a
Oma
Gaskin.
O'Neill? Oh, Gaskin?
No. She was a Meekins. She married my mother's brother. My mother was a Meekins. My father was an O'Neill.
Okay.
So.
She came from Ocracoke?
No, she come from Hatteras.
Oh, from Hatteras, I mean.
Yeah. She come from Hatteras. She delivered almost everybody around here.
Really?
Back in them days, yeah. Of course, they had more than one midwife back in them days, but that's the only one that I knew about. She delivered. That was Manson's mother, the guy that told you about.
Yeah.
That was his mother.
Is that right? She was the midwife?
Yeah, Yeah, she was a nurse. Yeah, she was actually a nurse.
Right.
And
I'd sure love to talk to somebody that knew how the midwives worked. Did they?
I don't know. I don't know who you talk to.
Yeah. Huh.
But
how about any of your children? Were they all born in a hospital? Or
every one of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them born in a hospital.
Norfolk way?
No, I had one born in Portsmouth, Virginia, one in New Orleans, 2 in New Jersey. No, 3 in New Jersey. One was born in Iceland.
Wow.
And Elizabeth was born in Elizabeth City, in the hospital.
What were you doing in Iceland?
My wife, she's my second wife.
Uh-huh.
And this is my stepdaughter I'm talking about,
Uh-huh.
Angie. She's out in Goldsboro,
Oh,
North
I
Carolina.
gotcha. Uh-huh. Wow. And how many of your children still live in Avon?
Just one.
Just one
Just
out of all those
out of
youngins.
LP, Buddy, we call him Buddy.
Uh-huh.
He lives here. He's the one with the software business.
Right.
He sells corporate software.
Wow. And fish is on the side.
Just for the fun of it. He has to, just to get out.
Yeah,
Because he's sitting in front of that screen all day.
Right, right.
He's looking for somebody to go to work for him, but he can't find anybody that's, that knows about what to do,
Yeah.
He had a guy that'd been to ECPI in Norfolk, but the guy said he tried him out. He worked for 2 or 3 days showing him what to do. The guy said, I'm going back up Norfolk area to work, so
Oh, okay.
so he left.
Right.
He's still looking for somebody because he needs somebody.
Yeah. Now, what brought about the end of the freight boat? I know the particular boat got swept away, but what brought an end to that business?
The highway.
The highway.
Yeah, we got the highway, and the harbor was dredged out. The harbor down here was dredged in 46. The highway here we got in 48, but it was about 50 or 51 before they got it all the way to Nag's Head, Wellbone Junction.
Did this highway used to run into the village by that Avon Hotel?
No, right there. The road's always been right where it is.
It is?
Always been right there.
So the Avon Hotel was off the main road always?
Yeah, right where it is.
Huh.
It's apartments now.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the term a drummer?
Yeah, that's people. Drummer's a person that comes around here and takes orders for commodities,
Yes.
Yeah,
I just heard that the other day.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, the drummer. Yeah, he'd come around. The person that come to the store and took orders was the drummer.
Mm-hmm. So you were familiar with that, with your daddy's business and your mom collecting?
Yeah,
And...
well, yeah, but that were classified as a drummer. A drummer is somebody come here in an automobile and took orders.
Right, right. So when they built that road, then people started using trucks.
Trucks started using trucks. Yeah, and when my father come home from the Navy, he didn't get mixed up in that freight anymore. That was the.
Yeah.
He come home in July. We had the September storm in September. The boat went to sea and broke up, so that was never.
Right. He just decided that would be the end of that.
That was it. And then the boat I was telling you about, the LP Junior,
Mm-hmm.
he turned that into a little trawler, and we used to go fish. I fished with him until I was till my 15th year.
Uh-huh.
And
What kind of boat was the LP Junior to begin with?
that was the cabin boat,
A
all
little
cabin.
cabin?
He used to carry hunters out. She was all cabin, just one flat cabin, bow to stern.
And with a motor?
Yeah, had a 3-cylinder lathrop in it. And he took some of the cabin off and put a different engine in it. And we used to go shrimping. We'd go out to Englehart and down to Southport and up the Pamlico River, up around Pamlico and Oriental and you're familiar with them places.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd go up there. That was very enjoyable to me.
And that boat was named after you?
Her name was actually the Brant. It's the one that my father bought off the
Okay.
Bradford when he bought this one.
But he changed the name? No.
Called it the LP Junior.
Oh.
We were sitting on the dock one day. Daddy says, here's that old man. He wants to eat supper with us. This real old gray-headed man. I said, how do you know that, Daddy? He says, well, when Daddy cooked a big pot of bean soup and hot biscuits, and this old man walking out the dock and said, Daddy finally asked him, says, Captain, you want to come aboard and have a bowl of beans with us? He says, yeah. Yeah, he says, I'd like that. So he come aboard, and he saw that name on the bow, LPJR. And he says, I've been trying to figure out the name of your boat. Is it the Lip Jar? Yeah, we was tied up in Englehart there next to the shrimp dock. But to a kid, that's very interesting going to all these little ports up these rivers.
You learned a lot, didn't you?
Oh God, yeah. My father did. My father, he made me watch him do everything.
Yeah.
But it's just been in this past year that I got started doing this.
Well, that must be really nice for you to.
Well, it takes my mind off of things,
Yeah, and then you can think about all the things that you learned and didn't even realize you learned.
Well, you don't. when our kids was growing up, all you had your mind on was kids, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any children?
I have one
One.
and 2 stepchildren.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my greatest pleasure. I couldn't stand it anymore. You know, kids, I couldn't take that anymore.
Yeah.
They come here most of the time when all my kids come home. They're, at the most, it'd be 5
Mm-hmm.
at one time. God, man, you talking about layout. We have big shrimp and steamed clams and
How many grandyoungins? I mean,
10.
Yeah.
I've got 10
10,
grandchildren.
wow.
10,
Wow.
10 grandchildren.
Yeah, I bet it's great for them to come back here.
Well, they all come. Oh man, they want to come back. I have a daughter who lives up in Fort Drum. Her husband's a major in the army,
Mm-hmm.
and boy, she's the one. She's called me all the time.
Yeah.
Some days she's depressed. She calls me, you know, I miss you, Daddy.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
But I raised all them kids, and everybody's happy. I have one daughter that's given me some problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's got mixed up in this stuff, like around here, you know.
Oh, yeah. Does she live here?
No, she's down in South Carolina.
Oh.
She carried her kids up, dropped her kids off to one of my younger daughters. Or one's 11 and one's 14, going on 15, and she dropped them off up there, and she left. My my younger daughter, tried to take care of them.
Oh.
This daughter's 42 years old, like that.
Oh, yeah. You have 9 children altogether?
Oh, no, I had 7.
Oh, you have 7 children.
7, counting my stepchild, Angie.
Uh-huh. Well, having problems with 1 out of 7 isn't bad. Those are good odds.
But it don't help the situation I'm in now with that girl over in Iraq. You know what I mean?
Oh,
When I go to bed, that's the trouble. I went to bed last night, and the dog woke me up at it was 12:58 when I looked at the clock,
Yeah.
and I got up and let the dog out. It was after 4 o'clock before I got back to sleep.
Oh my gosh.
I tried sleeping pills and go to the doctor and get sleep, if they don't even work.
Really?
They don't even work.
Well, you'll be glad to have her back, won't you, when she
Oh,
comes
God.
home?
Yeah, I will.
Oh my gosh. Well, you'll
But-
be real proud, won't you? You're proud now.
Well, I'm proud, yes, but I'm proud, but
nervous.
I'm nervous all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
It's a burden on you.
Oh yeah.
So
She's.
people in them days, they didn't realize. You don't realize how good you had it.
Mhm.
You just don't realize how it was. Nobody had any insurance.
Right.
Nobody had to pay hardly anything. When I moved home in '73, taxes on this property was only $13,
Oh my gosh.
and now it's 600 and something.
Wow.
So you didn't realize how good you had it. I tell it a guy not long ago. I remember the good times and the bad times. All this stuff going on around here now. There was nothing like that back in them days, you know.
Right. Probably the worst back then was people getting into, alcohol. or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Well, you had your time drunks. You just laughed at them.
Yeah.
You know.
Did people have moonshine?
No, my father. You don't. Did you come? You come down the highway, right? You know the bridge up here they call New Inlet.
This way?
Yeah, up north, up P Island. That
Oh,
old
yeah,
bridge.
yeah.
You look out there and
Yeah,
see
that old bridge,
Yeah.
right.
That was an inlet started, and my father was one of the freight boats that hauled lumber to build that. They'd go up Outfall Canal over here, and said they bring back a load of lumber and 5 gallons of corn whiskey each trip.
Homemade corn whiskey?
Yeah, homemade corn whiskey.
And where was that made?
Probably over up in the area up there around Outfall Canal and around Columbia. And,
Man's Harbor.
yeah,
all in
anywhere
through
up there. Yeah, where they had lumber, they'd
Yeah.
haul that corn whiskey back.
Uh-huh. And where would the corn whiskey go? Just to different people or stores?
Well, what it
or
was,
something?
they had all those workers building the bridge, see?
Oh, and they would want it?
Yeah, they'd take a little sip every once in a while, I imagine.
Oh my gosh.
You take it back in the old days, they used to say these old women would float around the road. They had a bottle of stuff called laudanum.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was cocaine, opium, or what was in it. But it either had, you know what paregoric is? Paregoric is a drug.
Some kind of medicine.
Yeah, my mother used to rub my gums in it when I
That's
was
right.
a kid.
Yeah.
Rub your gums in it. And no wonder the kids was happy, right? Anyhow.
Between that and the dope to drink.
Yeah, Coca-Cola. Call them dopes, yeah. But I don't do.
And the women would be up on the road with
Laudanum.
laudanum, and they would sell it?
No, the store sold it. It was just patent medicine.
Oh, and the women would
It was just like
drink
going to a
it?
drugstore today and get something for a cut finger. They had that stuff back then. You'd call tonics and stuff like that.
And the women
My
especially
mother,
would...
they used to have this stuff out for kids. My mother to get it, I'd have to take it. God almighty, what a dose. They had one thing called chill tonic. We'd take it in the fall of the year. You're supposed to keep you from getting colds and stuff.
Oh, you weren't even sick and you'd have to take that?
No, you took it, yeah. Asafoetida. God almighty, I don't know what that was made out of.
Asafoetida?
Uh-huh. You could buy it. You could buy it. And it's they'd soak it in water.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had to take worms. All the kids right here had worms.
Oh.
We did. I'm not kidding you. Worms. We'd have to take worm drops.
Really?
Yeah. God almighty. And what was caused from, we didn't have enough vegetables. That's what.
I thought you would have a lot of vegetables here.
Well, no, they didn't. We eat mostly fish
Mm-hmm.
and crabs and oysters and things like that.
Didn't everybody have a garden?
Yeah, we did. We had a cow.
Uh-huh. But you just didn't get enough vegetables.
Enough green stuff.
And how about drinking that? Did you used to drink the rainwater?
Drink rainwater, yeah, and Yopon.
And Yopon tea?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Yopon.
Did you ever drink that?
Many a time.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I liked it, but what I did, I put cream and sugar in mine.
Mm-hmm.
My mother drank it straight.
Right.
My mother, this old lady, the man that had the post office down here,
Mm-hmm.
my mother and his wife used to make Yopon right back of the house here.
Oh.
What you do, you build a fire. When the fire starts, you throw a wet blanket over top of it, and the fire goes out, and it sweats.
Oh.
They call it sweating it.
Right.
Come from the Yopon bushes.
Ah.
And they sweat it, and that's what they drank. Yeah, that was good with boiled fish.
They'd sweat it, then chop it up. And
Chop it up, sticks and all, the little branches. Chop it up with an axe or a hatchet.
And then just throw that in water and steep
Put it in water, bring it to a boil. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know, Yopon. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's Willa. Willa, aspirin is made from willow trees.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, years and years ago, I've heard my mother say that old people would chew willow bark.
Huh. The local people here would do that, would chew the...
Yeah, years and years ago. I don't remember anybody doing it, but I've heard my mother say they
So
chew.
whatever chemical is in aspirin comes from the willow
Comes
tree?
from willow bark.
Huh. Old people were smart, weren't they? Just
Well, back in them days, it's just like these people in these forests and stuff that's never seen a human being.
Mm-hmm.
They know what to do. They know
Right.
which plant to chew and what to drink and
Could
stuff.
you tell me a little bit about what you were saying in your shop about the seaweed and what they used to do with
Yeah,
that?
Mr. Charlie Webbs, he had that boat first. I believe he bought it from the Salter brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And they take his sea oars in June.
Seahorse?
We call it sea oars. All it is seagrass.
How do you spell that?
I have no idea. It's one of these.
Was it H-O-R-S-E? Seahorse?
I
or
don't know.
seahorse?
Oars. They call it sea, or we call it sea oars. It's not.
Seahorse.
It's not. It's just a seagrass.
Uh-huh.
What they do is it breaks loose from the reef
Mm-hmm.
every June, and it comes against the shore.
Uh-huh.
God almighty, it gets rotten, and I'm telling you,
Still, to this day?
to this day. What they do, they'd have men go out and get it when it broke loose.
Mm-hmm.
They'd bring it and put it on these drying racks. They had racks shaped like this,
Uh-huh.
sloped down. They put the sea oars on it, and the water would run out,
Uh-huh.
and they dry it, and they keep turning it with pitchforks. And then when it got really dry, they'd put it in bundles and put it on that boat and carry it to Elizabeth City. They sell it to some mattress factory in Norfolk.
Oh, they would stuff the mattresses with it?
Yeah, But when it rots here, it kind of, when they do it the way they did, it didn't break apart.
Mm-hmm.
It stayed like strings,
Right.
But when it sits there by itself in that hot water, it kind of rots, and when it washes up, it falls all to pieces.
And then starts stinking?
Yeah, oh God, it'll turn your house black. It'll turn the white paint black.
What's in it?
I have no idea. It must be some kind of acid or something. It stinks awful.
My gosh. But they would dry it out
They
so
dry
it
it
wouldn't
out, put
stink,
it-
and it would just be nice and soft in a mattress.
Yeah, they bail it up and carry it up there. Yeah.
Did y'all used to make your mattresses out of it too?
No, we had feather beds.
Oh.
My mother, we had to. God, I'll never forget my feather bed. You get in there in the wintertime, you know,
Uh-huh.
and you'd lay down in it. You'd sink right down where you had to raise up, and look over the edge. And talk about warm.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Well, we only have those wood and coal stoves, you know.
Right. Well.
Never bothered me though. You know what you don't have, you never miss. But it's like once you get stuff, that it changes, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think most of the kids today have to leave to get good work, or are they finding work around?
They're gonna have most of them end up with their mother and father supporting them.
Oh.
That's what it is here.
And do you think young families, newlyweds, can afford to buy land
No.
here? What
No.
What are they going to do to keep the
I
community
don't
going?
know. The only thing is, you take like all my property, I've already turned over to my kids.
Yeah.
So when I die, all they got to do is step in.
Right.
You know, it's all taken care of.
Mhm.
But no, they can't. It's not like me. When I got married the first time, I was making $125 a month.
Mhm.
I had a car and rented an apartment and bought food. Of course,
Right.
my first wife, she worked for a telephone company, $25 a week.
Oh my gosh.
But we got by, you know, we got by.
Right. So nowadays, kids pretty much have to buy property from their kin or inherit property from their
That's
kin
exactly
to afford
right.
to
There's
stay
no way.
here.
Listen. The way the world is set up now, the way it is, it started during the Second World War when women had to go to work. It takes two today to run a house. It's a hard job for just one person to make the money.
Right.
You
Right.
take these people their mortgage payments is $700 to $1,500 a month. I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
back in them days, you know, it didn't cost that much.
Mm-mm.
I remember my wife and I, we used to buy chicken backs and necks and make soup out of it, you know,
Mhm.
stuff like that to get by, just so we could buy a pack of cigarettes. You know,
That was the luxury, was the
Yeah,
cigarettes?
yeah. Of course, on the ships, I'd get a carton of cigarettes for 80, 90 cents. That was called C stores. Just get it. They sold cigarettes, no
Oh,
tax.
right.
The biggest part of cigarettes is tax.
Right, right. Well, when you were helping your dad or your mother and all, and going to all these different communities, did you notice a difference between the different communities of Hatteras Island, like different personalities?
Yeah, the Rodanthe talk more like I do. They called it Old English or something. I don't know what it was. My father, he always swears. You know, that's the phoniest thing that I used to read a lot, but I've only got one eye now. I had a little stroke that lost my other eye,
Oh,
and my father used to read a lot too. That's what got me to read. He always swears that the people from Rodanthe come from the Lost Colony.
right. That's the lost colony.
That's where the people went.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of information saying they were down here by Cape Point, down where down the back of Buxton.
Right.
They find these settlements down there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matter of fact, every year they go down and dig. You know. And now anybody that thinks that they sailed a boat up there, went back a Mateo, and tied up is a fool. There's no way that they're going to sail a boat up there through them narrow channels
Right.
in a sailboat. No way. They'd go aground and never get off.
Right.
So that's just,
But
of course, they make money out of it, right?
they have the play, so you
Yeah.
better not change
Yeah.
history because they're
Yeah.
making.
Yeah. Have you ever been there to that place?
I heard it was pretty good.
Yeah,
though.
it is. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been to it twice.
I'd like to go. Well, did you ever notice a difference between salvo and waves? And
Well, that was about like road out there.
And how about down at Buxton? And
Well, most people from Buxton come from Avon.
they do.
Yeah, after that 33 storm, the 29
that.
storm, a lot of them moved down there. Yeah,
Because Buxton was higher.
it was higher. Yeah, my father's mother's sister lived down here. It was a place called Matthew's old place. 29 storm tore their house up. They moved to Buxton.
Oh. So you can find some of the same names down
Same,
there now.
yeah, that's right. And a lot of the midgets that come from up here, and the Grays,
What's the worst storm you've ever been through?
44 storm. 1944.
You remember that?
See those marks on the wall over there? That was done that in '93.
You're kidding.
No, yeah, the cows was full. I never had this house raised up until '93. The cows did this back here, and it did that over there.
Uh-huh. From floating around?
Yeah, yeah, there was 30-some inches of water. In '44, there was 4 feet of water from the floor upside the wall in there. We was in the attic.
How old were you then?
'44, I was 10.
Oh my gosh, that must
Yeah, I
have been
just
exciting.
turned 10.
Was the house floating?
No, the house never floated. This house has never budged off the blocks. But a lot of, we sat up there and watched houses go down to the bank of the beach.
How come yours didn't?
When my father built the house, they put a great big chimney block under the house, a big concrete slab
Right.
that come clear up to the floor, and the house set down in the chimney, and the chimney held it. Now, if you look at the side of the house down that way, the house is warped a little bit like this, where it wanted to go that way.
Right.
In other words, the side of the house each end tried to go, but the middle stayed the same. See, that's why there's a little bend in it.
How about that?
Yeah.
When you say they went to the bank of the beach?
Yeah, those
what
houses.
part of the beach is that?
That's what the bank of the beach is where the water washes up.
Okay, the wet part?
You know where you turn to come in here?
Mm-hmm.
That house right there where you turn to come in.
Mm-hmm.
That house was on the bank of the beach with the breakers rolling up against it. It wasn't a house, it was a store.
Uh-huh.
And another house right out from here was also sitting on the bank of the beach.
So they had to roll them back?
Yeah, bedway and rollers, yeah.
What's a bedway?
You know, where you lay planks down on the sand, and you take rollers and put under the sills, and you'd have a horse or truck or something pull
I
it.
heard stories of a fellow down from Davis my way that used to come up here after a storm and help put the houses back. And he went to Rodanthe and all.
What was his name?
I'm trying to think. It was started with a D. Delmore Davis or somebody like that.
The only one I ever remember around here was, what was that guy's name? I can't remember. I was 16.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember what his name was.
Was he from Corsound area?
No, he was from
Okay.
up. No, he was from up north.
Okay.
No, we have a creek right back at the house called First Creek.
Mm-hmm.
There was some people who used to come over here in the fall of the year to catch speckled trout from down the Corsound. They used to live on little cabin boats back there in the creek.
Right. Huh.
But that was many years ago.
Yeah. Well, I can't think of anything else to ask right now. Would you like to add anything?
I don't know what I could tell you.
What I would like to do is to go back out to that boat
Okay.
and have you describe how you built that on tape.
Okay. It's built just like you'd build a regular boat.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you have to. I didn't use the saws to actually shape the wood. I shaped the wood myself.
Uh-huh.
I used the saw just to cut it into planks.
Right.
That's what you do with a regular. That's the way that boat was built. When they built it on the shore side, they had a hammer, a hatchet, a plane, and for sandpaper, they take a rag, dip it in the water, and put sand on it.
That was sandpaper?
Well, that's what they used, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they never did sand the inside the boat. They sand the outside the boat.
And that was strong enough to smooth the wood?
Yeah, but or leather with wet leather with the sand on it.
Mm-hmm. And then they would have to bend the wood. How would they bend the wood if they had to bend the
With
wood?
a block and tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Block and tackle.
It's amazing what they used to do without power tools, isn't it?
Great. Well, this house here was built with nothing but a hand saw, a crosscut saw, a rip saw, a hatchet, and a hammer, and a plane. This whole house is built with that.
Wow.
You know, I hated to cover these walls up, but there's nothing I could do. In them days, they used paint, oil paint,
Right.
and when they didn't have the paint thinner, they used gasoline or kerosene thin to paint down with.
Mm-hmm.
It always cracked. There's nothing I could do. I done everything I could do.
Right.
And I hated to do this, but
You know what amazes me is how the fishermen used to actually fish with cotton nets.
cotton nets, yeah.
I mean, that must have been so heavy.
They used to. This lady used to live over here, two houses from it. That's what she did all winter, all her life, since she was a young girl. She made nets,
And she would just buy the twine?
Buy the twine. Buy
and
the
then
twine.
from that,
And she used to do that from her from the time she was a young girl, and you know, even right before she died, she still done it just to have something to do.
what was her name?
Miss Lottie.
Lottie?
Uh-huh.
Lottie Gray?
No, she was Lottie Williams, but
Lottie
she was a
Williams.
Miller. Her
Mhm.
maiden name was Lottie Miller.
Wow. And I heard that the women used to hang those nets inside the house
Hang them up on the wall, yeah.
Oh,
When after they made them,
so they could work at night or in the cold in the winter.
yeah. That's what it is. Now my mother, she always quilted. She used to sit in there and had a quilt bat and one of those square things with nails all around where you
She
push it down.
quilted, huh?
Yeah.
Or do you have any of those quilts left?
I got some, but they're all eat up.
Yeah.
Now my wife, she made a quilt. She made two quilts this winter.
Really? Do the
Uh-huh.
women get together and quilt together?
She does now. She just started, but it's one girl from Ireland this past year. They do quilting together.
Oh, wow.
She makes these things. I don't see done in here now. These Afghans.
Afghans,
Yeah.
yeah.
God Almighty.
Do you remember seeing the men having to dip those cotton nets in tar?
Well, here's what they used tar for. They had nets called fly tail nets.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any bottom line on it, and to make it sink, they dip the net, the bottom of the net, in tar, and then they'd stick it in the sand.
And then the sand would always be stuck there?
Yeah, stuck there. It just held the bottom of the net down.
And anchor it?
No, it wasn't anchor it.
Or
They'd
just
have
make it a little heavier?
what it do that the tar would just hold the bottom to the ground, to
Uh-huh.
the bottom, and they'd always stick a stake, stick a little like a little yo palm stick, you know.
Uh-huh.
They stick it down and tie the net to that.
Underwater?
No, it was stuck out of the water. The stake was actually stuck out of
But
water.
when they dipped it in the tar and then they dipped it in the sand,
Yeah.
was it underwater or was it out of the water so the sand would stick to it?
No. You did that before you ever set the net in the water.
So it would have that sand on
It
the
would have
bottom.
it on there, yeah.
Make it a
That,
little bit
all that
heavier.
was for was like using a lead line.
Okay. I never heard that before.
Yeah. I've never bought a net in my life. I hang my own nets.
Really?
Matter of fact, my son's using my nets now.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's now the monofilament?
Monofilament, yeah.
Uh-huh.
When I first moved home, I used nylon.
Mm-hmm. When did
Boy,
nylon nets, was that after World War II?
well, I come home in '73, right after they come out with. I actually hung the nylon net back in. I think it was 1958. Now, I used to use them when I come home on leave, you know.
Right.
But when I retired, we started using monofilament,
Okay.
and started.
What's the difference between nylon and monofilament anyway?
It's cooked a little bit more. One, nylon is a strand of plastic, you know, like
Uh-huh.
nylon, and then they cook it more, and it turns to like a liquid, and the liquid is like a, you know, you can see through it. You
Right,
know?
it's like invisible.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And did they ever I heard they used to lime the nets,
Lime cotton nets that keeps them rotten keeps the nets from
and that's
rotting.
that white powder?
Yeah. Well, everybody had a lime barrel along the shore.
Mm-hmm.
Every Friday or so, or whenever they got through fishing, they dipped the nets in lime water, and you had to hang them up and dry them. Didn't cotton it rot.
Right.
And then they went to linen nets. Those caught. My God, they caught.
Is linen heavier than the
No,
cotton?
it was finer, real
Oh.
fine, but it was stronger than cotton.
Right.
They used to use that mostly in the wintertime for shad and
Do you
jack.
remember when they switched to linen about? What year?
No, they were still using them when I
Was
was
it
a
in
little
your
kid.
time? Yeah, it was in your time.
They'll still use them when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
We see most people just sold what they could sell, but they keep stuff to eat. They eat fish every day,
Mm-hmm.
you know, fish or crabs or whatever, you know.
Right. So a lot of that was just for local consumption.
When you walked up the road in the evening, you go by people's houses, you could smell fish frying almost all the time, you know.
Could you go down to the shore when the fishermen came in and get a fish if you wanted one?
Oh, yeah, sure, they'd always give you fish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we always do now. I mean, people fish always give you fish. You don't go down there and buy fish off people. They give them to you, you
That's
know.
nice.
Sure it
That's
is.
nice. And how about those big red drum in that picture? What did he do with that? Was your father?
Yeah, my mother canned them.
She canned that big red drum.
Yeah, can whole big quart jars full of them.
Those are huge fish.
I know it is.
Those are the big ones.
Let me tell you, I was off. My father died in '61, And the day before, he caught 7 drum.
The day before he died?
The day before he died, he caught 7. And my mother told him next morning, she said, Lauren, you don't need to go today. She said he was gray, like his skin.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, I'm going. So, you know, the adrenaline, you know, catching him drum.
Right.
He went up there, put his line out, caught one, 47 pounds, brought it back up, put it in the truck, and fell dead on the beach.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how he died, was catching a big red drum.
Right after that, he went take his coat off. The guy with him said, and then he told me many a time. He says, when I go, I'm going over there.
Wow.
He had everything all ready.
And what'd you say about his coat?
He said, it was September. He said,
Mm-hmm.
told the guy, I'm going to take my coat off. Said he took his coat off, laid it on the truck, and fell dead.
Wow.
Right after he put the drum in there.
And how old was he when he died?
64.
So he died like he wanted to die.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Uh-huh.
That's what he
Oh
said.
my gosh. So when your mother would can that drum, then you'd eat it all winter long?
Yeah, eat it all the time. Yeah,
It would be in
was
jars?
delicious.
In those big mason jars?
Yeah,
You
mason
cut it
jar.
up in like cubes?
Yeah, put it in little chunks. What you do is you cut the drum up in chunks, put it in the jar, fill it full of water, added a heaping teaspoon of salt, put the lid on it, real tight, put it in a hot bath water, usually about 7
And that
quarts.
would expand it enough?
And it would cook it right inside.
Oh,
Cook it
wow.
just like you can stuff is cooked.
Right.
When you buy canned peas, they're cooked right in the cans. And same thing. Yeah, we'd have a whole. God, it tasted good in the wintertime.
And how would you eat it? You just take it out?
Stew it and or boil it.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with how they cook fish?
Well, I've heard about the stewed drum.
Yeah.
They boil it with potatoes
Yeah.
and onions.
Yeah, potatoes, onions, and
And-
corn dumplings.
And something about bacon drippings or
No,
fat
salt
back.
pork.
Salt pork?
Salt pork,
Uh-huh. Mm.
God, man, that fish is. We just had some a couple weeks ago.
Did you?
Yeah, really did. Yeah, friend brought me some.
Oh, that's nice.
But I think my favorite is boiled. Where you take it and boil it in salt water.
Mm-hmm.
You boil potatoes. Then you take your fish out. You put a piece of fish on your plate. You got to chop it up a little bit. You put potatoes. Then you take the onions, a handful of diced up onions, and put on top of it.
Oh.
Then you take your salt pork drippings. You try it out. What
Right.
I do is just cook a little piece of salt pork and use cooking oil.
Mm-hmm.
Mix it in with it, but it still
Right.
has the flavor. Then you pour that all over that and put black pepper on top of it and have baked cornbread. Oh my God,
Yum.
I'm telling you.
That's something. Is he on a boat there, or is that?
No, that's a truck.
That's the truck.
That's his old pickup.
So
truck.
did he catch it right off the beach?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he caught him. Yeah.
All right. Well, how about we go out and you can just describe that.
Okay.
Okay, LP, could you just describe to me the features of this boat that make it distinct as a freight boat?
The reason this boat's distinct is the way it's built because it's flat bottom.
Uh-huh.
It's made for working in shallow draft bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and this boat was made to live on. You know, you carried everything on there like you would a home. You know,
Right.
and while you was underway and you lived and eat on the boat, one man would cook and the other guy'd steer, and
And the freight would be kept in what part of this
Right
boat?
here.
Right in the center?
all this area here, right in there.
Down in the hold.
They had big center boards because, you know, they had big sails. Those 3 sails on it. Had a jib, a mainsail, and a stern sail.
Mm-hmm.
Stern, the next thing I'm building is a cabin here. This is, you know, had a cabin here
Right.
about this high. And the mast come up and the boom come across the cabin about this far out.
Okay.
Over the edge of the boat. And had 3 sails. And the boat would slip sideways without this, the center board.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that was for. And just as this boat was built for coastal use only. I mean, she wasn't made for going to sea. They didn't go to sea, flat bottom boats.
Right.
But this was made like for the Pamlico Sound or Albemarle, wherever you wanted to.
And what was the purpose of the rounded stern?
I don't know. I don't know what the purpose was. Just some boats had them and some of them didn't. Some of them had oval shape, was shaped like almost like an egg in the stern. They go like this and like that, you know. but some had round sterns.
And it had, did you say 3 sails but 2 masts?
Had 2 masts, yeah.
Okay.
Well, the first mast, the sail come up here. It's called a jib.
Uh-huh.
It comes up here, and it's tied to the front of the mast.
Okay.
This sail here in back of the mast is a big sail. Your mast is real high. This is the one that goes up with the top sprit, then comes back down like this. Now this mast is not quite as high, but use this is really makes the boat stabilize. Even trawlers today use a mast on their cabin with a sail. They're called stabilizing sails.
Right, right.
They keep a trawler from doing this. They kind of hold,
And so this was how many feet again?
56 feet.
So what would you call this? A 56-foot?
I don't know.
Freight
That's
boat.
what I'm trying to find out. I want to know, and I want you to do that. I'm going to give you my address. I want you
Okay.
to find out what these boats were called. Is it skipjack? What was it? I don't know what it was.
Okay.
But it's got a bow like a Sharpie. Now it could be a Sharpie.
And built in Smyrna.
Built in
In
Smyrna.
1901, you
1901.
say?
Yeah.
Okay. And now here is the living space, right?
That is where you had your breakfast, right down in there.
Uh-huh. And this is the forward part of the boat.
This is called the forepeak.
The forepeak.
Right here was a barrel. That's where the rainwater was. You come up this ladder. I haven't built yet. Come up the ladder, dip your pan down in this barrel.
Uh-huh.
What it was usually an old whiskey barrel,
Right.
that was burnt out inside,
Yeah.
and that's what they put water in.
Okay, and so this hole is for
That's
the...
a mast. That's a forward mast.
Oh, okay, but did you say there's a wood stove down in there?
Yeah, right over here, right there. That
So
little-
do you have to drill a hole for the pipe to come up?
Yeah, they had it. The other one, I'm not going to drill a hole. I'm just going to stick a
Right.
piece there.
Oh,
Paint
yeah.
it black, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that little wood stove down there, and you sat down there. They had a little table, and see that little table?
Yeah. And then those were also turned into bunks? If
Yeah, you
wanted
could
to?
sleep on them. Yeah, they had pads on them.
Where did you sleep as a boy?
I slept there and back here.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is actually higher on a regular boat. They had the bunks right here.
Uh-huh.
It was a metal frame bunk with a canvas bottom, lashed to it with rope all the way around,
Right.
My father and the other guy would sleep here, and I'd sleep under Daddy here.
Okay. And how would he be able to move a heavy freight out of this boat?
By your arms.
His
That was it.
arms?
Yeah,
Did
that's
he
it.
have a block and tackle? Or
Yeah, they had
anything?
block and tackle like for tombstones and stuff like that. We'd haul a lot of.
Tombstones. Yeah.
So all heavy stuff, you could hoist it right up,
Mm-hmm.
But it was. It had a big hull. She had a big cargo. These flat bottom boats would carry it. They actually carry more than a regular, like a bug eye or something, because
Right.
they don't draw as much water loaded because they're flat bottom.
Did he ever have any danger in crossing the Sound full of all that cargo?
I don't never heard him say anything, but
Yeah.
he did on the bug eye one time. They went down and anchored here at the Cape Channel on their. See, I told you they had to go deep water with that bug eye.
Mm-hmm.
They anchored down there one evening. This was in March. And Daddy went to bed, and my mother and her father was setting up. This was in the bug eye, not this one.
Mm-hmm.
And Daddy, my grandfather got Daddy up, said, "Lord, you better come up here. There's something not right." Daddy said he got up, you could hear a roaring. By the time he got shoes on, the boat lurched. It broke the anchor chain and broke the forward mast out of it. When the
Oh.
shifts come,
Right.
a blizzard. She went right across the southern reef. You know where the Soundside restaurant is, the Buxton?
Mm-hmm.
Right there. She went right next to that door. Nothing there then yet, but a marsh,
Right.
And the boat he was on, the bowsprit, went right up where the highway is today,
Mm-hmm.
there, and shoved the bowsprit right up in the sand there.
Oh,
My mother walked off of that and went to her aunt, my father's aunt.
And got help.
Yeah, that was it. The boat laid there for 3 months. Took 3 months to get it off.
Wow.
They had the bed way roller it, like I was telling you, they used to do houses.
Good Lord.
Oh, you know what I did? I took your drink.
Oh, that's okay.
No, I'm going to get you some more.
Now, what kind of lumber, what kind of wood was this freight boat made out of?
Juniper.
Juniper?
Yeah.
And what was the original name of that boat when it came from Smyrna?
Well, it stayed the same.
It was always
Yeah,
the
it's
what?
a documented vessel, the Missouri.
The Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri.
Missouri, yeah.
Spelled like the state?
Huh?
How do you
Yeah,
say-
Missouri.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah, now take his soda so I don't drink yours.
Okay. And so when you're done with this, you're going to have the sails and the masts and everything.
I cut the sails and sew them by hand.
Okay. Are you going to paint the name of the boat?
I don't ever remember the name on it.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
want it
ever
just
remember.
like it used
I
to
don't
be.
ever remember. Let me tell you the color. Okay, the bottom was red. Like that. Here's the bottom paint right here. This is what I use for bottom paint.
Oh, uh-huh.
And when my father had her, she was green. And the decks up here are what we call buff.
Buff.
Kind of buff, kind of a buff color.
Right.
Even the masts were buff. This was gray. This area's, and the hatchet, this house back here was white, and so was this piece. This thing come up like this, like a little curve.
Right.
It had two doors on it. You open to go down it. The cabin had steps that come down here, and the way that worked is you had on top of the cabin you had another little hatch that slid forward, and then you open the doors and walk down the ladder.
Oh. Now, are you doing this purely on memory?
It's the what?
Are you building this boat purely on memory?
Just memory.
You remember how that angled in
I
like
remember
that?
that rudder. I remember. Yeah, we used to swim out there when I was kids, and stand on that rudder and pull ourselves up there.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't have any pictures of this boat. You're just
Don't have
remembering
one.
the boat.
Not a one.
That's amazing. That's
Don't
amazing.
have. See, there were pictures of it, but all these storms and stuff ruined them. You know,
Yeah.
water went in and everything.
Right. Wow. Well, it's a beauty.
It is. It weren't beautiful. I can tell you that. You know, it weren't beautiful. It's beautiful to me,
Right.
because I remember how it was.
It sure did its job, though, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it done its job. That's exactly right. Fed people.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn this off now. And I appreciate all your time, Mr. LP.
Now, how you gonna play this still?